Welcome to the Mango Effect podcast, where every week we talk about the path to living a limitless life and having the freedom to do it your way. No topics are off limits. We get into the practical, the hypothetical, and the downright juicy stuff. I'm Mindy Rosser, your host and lifestyle cheerleader, and I'm here today to talk about dealing with uncertainty. Now, how many of you actually love dealing with uncertainty? Like when we don't know what's going to happen, there often is a lot of apprehension, a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear. And when we're making a shift, when we're living the Mango way and we're actually experimenting, when we're running those lifestyle experiments, when we are trying new things, when we are looking at things outside our comfort zone, when we're learning new skills, there's a lot of uncertainty that comes along with all of those challenges. And something that we've been dealing with here, and if you listened to last week where we talked about let's get gutsy, this is a really good follow-up to that, because as we're getting gutsy, as we're trying all these things, there is a heck ton of uncertainty involved in this process. And there is no way to go through it unscathed. You are going to actually have to deal with a lot of not knowing. And when you are trying different things, when you are making a play, when you are experimenting with your business, there are so many factors that we just don't know. We can do as much homework and preparation as possible. We can read, a dozen books. We can follow all of these thought leaders. We can get advice from mentors, but still the uncertainty is going to be there. So as good humans, as people who are living the Mango way, we have to figure out, there are going to be some times when I'm going to feel really uncertain. I'm really not going to know, no matter how hard I try to get that certainty, no matter how good my forecasting is, no matter how many people tell me it's going to be fine. I'm still going to have this sense and this feeling of uncertainty. So how am I going to deal with that in the moment? So all of us are going to face this. This is not something that is just for business owners. It's not something that's just for somebody who's dating and trying to find the right mate. This is not just for those of us who have kids and our kids are struggling and we have no idea what the heck is going to happen. It is for all of us, because all of us are dealing with moments of uncertainty. And when we come up with a strategy, when we come up with things that we can do to calm ourselves down, to really alleviate that anxiety, to actually proceed through uncertainty with confidence, that's when we are empowered. That's what we admire. And I think that's what's funny, because we look at these people. For example, we look at people that are dealing with, for me, I like to think of a surfer, right? I love my surfing analogies. So you'll look at a surfer. I'm actually in the middle of watching a lot of surf heats right now, replays of competition. And what I love about the uncertainty factor there is you never know what type of wave you're going to get. So as a surfer takes a wave, as they're paddling out, as they're thinking about their heat. So let me give you a little bit of an idea if you don't know about surfing competitions, just a brief one. Basically, when it comes to a surf heat, you have 30, 40 minutes, thereabouts, sometimes 25, sometimes a little bit more, where you have to deliver. So no matter what the ocean is doing, because most of the time the competitions take place in the ocean, there are a few at wave pools and surf ranch, but most of them are in the ocean. The ocean is incredibly unpredictable. Even if the waves are pumping in the heat before you, so a wave pumping just means lots of waves, lots of energy, good size, good conditions, you still have to realize that the ocean may go quiet on you during your heat. You don't know what's coming. So as a surfer, you have to be prepared. And you have to know how you're going to deal with uncertainty. So as a really good competitor, like the competitors I really enjoy watching, because they model this, like it's modeled in real life, like I can watch it happening. The competitors who do quite well, they look at the conditions, they analyze, they have a game plan, but when they are actually out in the water, what they do is they adjust to the conditions. So for example, if the ocean goes a little bit sleepy, they're going to take little tiny waves just to get some points on the board. If the ocean gets massive and huge, then they're going to have to get really gutsy and take some really big aggressive waves that they may not have been anticipating. So you have to be prepared for either scenario, and you have to have a strategy for both outcomes and, a bunch of variety of other outcomes that could happen as well. So this is something that I continue to learn from surfing and just watching people perform at such a high level. The competitors who do the best, they know, and they've been through so many scenarios and so many uncertain heats that they understand this. They understand how to play the game. They understand the other competitors. They know when they can get a leg up on the competition just because, they have a little bit more of a sense of the ocean or a connection with that spot. They have some more local knowledge. They have a really good coach. So they are equipped to deal with uncertainty in the water. And as humans, as parents, as lovers, as friends, as business owners, as careerists, we all have to deal with uncertainty at some point in all of those different areas of our lives. So how are we going to deal with it? It gets easier over time too. It's one of those things that I love about getting older. And I've talked about this on the podcast too, why I love getting older. It's because you get so many more life experiences in your arsenal that you actually know how to deal with circumstances when they arise because you've either done something similar before, or sometimes you've even been through that exact same scenario with different people, different circumstances, but it's very, very similar. So just racking up those life experiences is really helpful in dealing with uncertainty, but still we're going to come across situations that we've never faced before and we can't find a parallel, and we're still going to feel that uncertainty. For us right now, it's, okay, this house versus that house, and we're in the process of making offers, and we have a clock ticking, like our stuff is on a boat at this point in time and headed to the mainland, and we are going to be on the mainland looking for a property, and hopefully it closes by the time we get there so we don't have to stay in an Airbnb or an extended stay. So for us, it's like, there's all this uncertainty, but you know what? We've been here before. Literally 4 years ago, just about 4 years ago, when we moved to Oahu, we literally had no idea where we were going. We did not have an apartment, did not have a condo, did not have a place to rent. We didn't know anyone. And we made it here. We found an apartment, condo, and we did just fine. So we have been here before, and going back to the mainland is definitely easier. The price point is different. We have a support network, so we're going to be okay. But it's just that in between, that anxiety that still pops up. And it's like, I don't know, Mindy, this is feeling a little uncertain, or you have to wait for them to accept the offer, or maybe we're in that counter offer process, And so for me, what I actually did, because I started getting kind of stressed out about it, I know everything's fine. We have it all covered. We're shopping within our price range. It's all good, right? But what I had to do is I had to flip it. And for me, dealing with uncertainty is really helpful when I can turn it into a game. So what I did was I said, you know what? Let's call this the house hunt, And so I've been going back and forth with my mom in the emails, and she's that's how we communicate best on the emails. We're not big phone talkers. And so every single time that there's a new development with the house hunt, I'm like, ooh, here's a house hunt update. Here's what we did. And she goes, Mindy, this is so fun. And just by making that really subtle tweak to how I viewed it, instead of like, anxiety, stressful, like my poor partner, husband, he is feeling all the anxiety for me, I think, at this moment. I'm like, it's fun. It's a game now. It's like, we're in the driver's seat. We get to choose. It's all good. But I think he's feeling a little more anxiety than I am. And I think dealing with uncertainty in this way is really helping. But it's different. Every single time that we go through a circumstance like this, you can't always use that same tactic. Like, I can't turn everything into a game. But for some reason, turning this one into a game is working. And I'm like, all right, let's see if this works. So it's really kind of figuring things out on the fly. This is where becoming resilient comes into play as well, because when you can adapt to the situation, when you can see what your sticking points are, when you can see where your hang-ups are, when you can see where the challenges are, and how you can actually reshape your mindset and kind of almost trick yourself sometimes, like the whole thing with anxiety. Anxiety could also be the same feeling as excitement. Same with fear. Fear, excitement. So when you can actually make that shift and go, you know what? Let me give that a try. Let me try to turn this into a game, or let me figure out how I can reframe this emotion, because it's really exciting. Like, turning it into a game actually made it fun for me. I'm like, all right, let's play ball. I like talking to our agent. Let's do this. Like, we can totally get this property, and let's make a counter offer, and let's see what happens. And so I think this has been a way to really work through uncertainty for me in this area. And maybe that's helpful for you too. Can you turn it into a game? Also, what can be helpful is getting advice. And I talked about this last week in the last episode when we were talking about getting gutsy. Listen to that episode. It's a really good precursor to today's. But in the Getting Gutsy episode, we were talking about the importance of support. getting mentors and people around you, whether that's a coach, whether that's a good friend, whether that's your mom like me, whether that's your partner, whoever those people are, talk with them, because sometimes they have insight that you just hadn't realized, or they can see it through a different lens and they're not spinning. Like sometimes we get spun and we just feel like those thoughts just keep spinning in our heads and we can't get out of that loop. So to pull ourselves out of the loop, sometimes getting that support system in place and really talking with people and getting their feedback can be really, really helpful. And doing that with my mom in particular has been fantastic. I mean, she knows the area. We're moving back to be close to her, which is going to be great. And so it's been really helpful just to get her perspective as well and really have that support network in place and have somebody to bounce ideas off. And the people that know you best, especially if you've known them for years, they've seen you go through a lot of different situations. So they can say, hey, remember when you went through this a few years back? You know, you did well. You did fine. You're going to survive this too. You know, sometimes we just need to be reminded that we have the power. We have the resources. We have the tenacity to make it through this uncertain sticking point. And at the end of the day, when we make it through, guess what? Then we can take our breath and we go, we'll look back and go, I made it through that. And we build our confidence and we become stronger as human beings. And this is so powerful because it's part of just growing up. It's part of adulting for those of you who are in that phase. Our 20-year-old, she's kind of going through that phase right now, buying her first car. Not quite sure if she picked the right car and it's, breaking down on her. And she's dealing with this type of uncertainty. So no matter what level of uncertainty you're facing, whether it's a career change, maybe you're going to try a launch in your business, maybe you are going to hire some people in your business, maybe you're starting a business, whatever that may be for you, you're going to face uncertainty. So how can you shore up your systems? How can you shore up the people around you? How can you prepare yourself for this uncertainty? What are you going to do when this thing happens? Because there are going to be points where you're just not going to know what to do, or you're just going to have to wait. For me, that's the hard part, is the patience. Have I ever mentioned that I'm not a very patient person? I want to know everything now. I want certainty now. Like, I don't want to wait until X, Y, and Z happens. I hate waiting on other people. Like, that is something I am learning. It's like sometimes you need to be dependent on others. Sometimes you need to delegate. So for me, I'm really learning that, and I'm getting real here. So this is a process for all of us. And maybe you've got that dialed. You're like, Mindy, I've got that mastered. I'm really good at delegating. I can depend on other people. Uncertainty isn't bothering me. But what are you going to do when you are uncertain? How are you going to deal with it? Another way to really think through uncertainty is, I love pros and cons lists. So kind of doing a pros and cons list when you get stuck, because sometimes you just have to write it all down and get your thoughts out. And maybe you think like the cons are kind of taking over and you're like, oh, this is so scary, or this is so difficult, or I'm not sure it's going to work. But then you got to write your pros down. And when you can see the pros and cons side by side, you can make a better decision. And also, if you have to make a decision, sometimes you don't need to. And sometimes we jump to conclusions and start making decisions where there really just needs to be a dose of patience, and you just gotta wait. You can't just ramrod things through. Sometimes you just have to be patient and wait for things to mature. And so this is something that I think in dealing with uncertainty is about the support network. It's about having patience. It's about the if this, then that, like modeling those scenarios for those of you who like to be prepared, and then just freaking taking the leap, because you're going to have to take a leap no matter what you do in life, unless your life is this fairy tale life where you never really have to make decisions. You never have to make hard calls. Nothing bad ever happens to you. You're going to deal with uncertainty. So if this, then that. If this happens, what are you going to do in that point? And sometimes that can also be a little bit of a proactive way. If you feel like, I'm not dealing with uncertainty yet, but I'm either at a decision point, or I want to explore an experiment. I want to run a lifestyle experiment. This is the perfect time to model out scenarios and figure out what you would do if something happened, if you're dealing with a certain type of uncertainty. And being able to do that on the fly is also a skill, and you're going to have to cultivate it over time. So people that have dealt with a lot of uncertainty throughout their lives, I feel like they're kind of like on two ends of the spectrum. Some people are kind of afraid to make decisions, and you can tell they're just like gun shy of everything. Like, don't change anything. Has to be the same. no change. And they kind of freak out with change. Then we have the others on the other side, like the growth mindset people, right? They're like, everything is uncertain. We're really looking for something in the middle where we are capable at dealing with uncertainty, but we're not just, jumping off bridges just for the sake of getting a high and adrenaline rush. There's a point to it. Dealing with uncertainty is about how we move through decisions that we make. And when we are confident in how we made that decision, then we can deal with uncertainty better. If we make rash decisions, then we need to back it up a step and say, all right, maybe that wasn't the best decision. Okay. Dealing with uncertainty when you make a poor decision is one thing. Dealing with uncertainty when you are confident in the decision is another. So those are two very, very different things. So just making sure that you can distinguish between the two, because that is key. So kind of wrapping this all up. Uncertainty. How do you deal with uncertainty? When something happens that you weren't anticipating, or when you have to wait on an answer and you just don't know what's going to happen, how do you cope with that period of time? How do you cope with the people around you? Do you feel like incredible anxiety? Are you able to channel that and blow off steam? Are you able to kind of self-talk yourself into, hey, I've been here before. I've done this before. I can do it again. I would love to hear your strategies. Totally would love to hear your strategies, because the next few months are definitely going to feel a bit more uncertain as we are moving through a transition. But I think looking back in time, I've been through so many transitions. I've moved a bazillion times. If you saw, when you run on a side note, when you actually check your credit, and you get that credit report and you see all those addresses, I think I probably have at least like 18, 20 addresses on there. So it's like I've been through moves before. I know how they go. It's all going to be fine. Everything always works out in the end. So sometimes we just have to remind ourselves, and sometimes just a reminder from a friend. If you need that support, reach out. Reach out to a close friend. Even if you're a little bit embarrassed, even if you're like, I don't want to bother them, or this isn't really that big a deal, reach out. Because when you reach out and you get that support, you'd be surprised. People love to help. People love to support you as you're going through transitions. We want to be there for each other. And it's just part of a good, healthy friendship, professional relationship, business partnership. All of that good stuff is built on trust. It's built on supporting each other. It's built around how we can help each other get to the next level, how we can work together through uncertainty as well. So feel free to share your take on dealing with uncertainty. What do you do? Do you have a super secret, magic trick or something that you want to share? Because I'm very, very curious. So DM me on Instagram to share your take. I am at Mango Effect Podcast, or you can shoot me a message on TikTok, if you'd like the TikTok, at Mango Effect Podcast. My daughter, Michaela, manages that one, but she will definitely ping me and let me know you messaged. So I will speak with you in the next episode, and I hope you're having a beautiful holiday season, and we will talk again soon. Bye for now.